right, good morning. The pardon board is reconvening. We're now at Louisiana State Penitentiary. On Monday, April 24th, 2023, it's 10:39 a.m. With the staff at there at the penitentiary, please introduce yourself for the record.
Deputy Warden Rochelle Ambo.
Reginald Lamoureux, classification.
Carmen Shipley, offender records.
Yeah, okay, and we have before us Mr. Liner. Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Could you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number, please.
Name's David Liner, 94178.
All right, and your counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. This is Amy Myers on behalf of Parole Project, representing David Liner today.
Let me acknowledge, we have quite a number of participants today in support. Of course, we have the Parole Project. We have Mr. Rand, who's there at Angola, I believe, yes, who will be speaking on Mr. Liner's behalf. We have Miss Irene Shepard. I think she's joined us by Zoom. Jason Liner there at the facility. Warden Benoit, he was with us earlier, waiting on the hearing, but he had to sign because he had some other pressing matters to tend to. But I wanted you to know that he was present. And Kevin Liner, in opposition this morning, we have a representative from the Attorney General's office. We have representing the victim's family, Claire Bourgeois, Christy Barnelow, Kim Thomas, Jeremy Barlow, Craig Meese, Josette Ness, and Cindy Latina. And for those who've indicated they'd like to speak, we'll call them in at the appropriate time. You're familiar with the process, Mr. Liner, because you've been here before, so we'll just get started. Mr. Liner, you're here seeking the commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in St. Mary Parish in April of 1980 to a life sentence for a first-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your case has been assigned to Mr. Marabella. Would you answer his questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Liner, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to ask you a few questions this morning, okay?
Yes, sir.
How old are you, Mr. Liner?
63,
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
44 years.
And you are currently at Louisiana State Penitentiary. How long have you been there again, the second time?
Since 2015, 8 years.
And that was shortly after your last pardon hearing, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your educational background. How far did you go in school?
10th grade.
Drugs or alcohol? Okay, drugs or alcohol involved in your youth?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tell me about your drug use.
Well, now looking back, I didn't realize that I was an actual drug addict. I thought I was just a teenager and experimenting with drugs and using it on the weekends. But now I look back and realize it was every weekend. I had never anything.
Specifically about how old were you when you started using drugs?
I would say around 14.
What did you start using?
Around 14, sir.
What did you start using at 14?
Mainly alcohol and marijuana, and amphetamines later, you know, as I grew a little older.
When did you progress to amphetamines?
Right around the time I quit high school in 10th grade.
And how often were you drinking, smoking marijuana, doing amphetamines?
Yes, sir. That was pretty much every weekend, going out in the weekends, starting Friday and Saturdays, and not too much on Sundays because you were getting ready to either, you know, when I was younger, still going to school, you had to go to school, or as I got older, you would stop before you go back to work.
Now, were you working back then?
I was sporadically working. I worked on offshore boats mostly, or tugboats on the intercoastal.
That right?
I'd work 6 months or so and then switch over to a different company, and I'd stop working for a while and then live on a few dollars I had and rely on my family, and then try and get another job.
Were drugs and alcohol the reason why you kept switching jobs?
I don't think that contributed to the job. I think I was just youthful and didn't have a plan for my future. I was not prepared to.
Let's talk about May 20th of 1978. Who were you then? Let's talk a little bit about who you were. You were a married man, is that correct?
Just gotten married, sir. Yes, sir.
You live in your family, your parents?
I was staying with my parents because I didn't have a job. I applied for a job and it was becoming available soon. But I mostly relied on my parents for my support and the support of my pregnant wife.
Your wife was pregnant at the time.
Yes, sir. Six months pregnant.
So how did you and your wife get along?
We got along good. I was very immature, though. I know she was more mature than I was. But we had a good relationship, and I think we still have one.
Well, tell me about your relationship with Roxana Verwood. You knew her for a long time. Tell me about your relationship with her.
Yes, sir. We grew up, we lived on the same street. I guess we became friends when I was 13 or 14. And we became friends because her brother, Troy, was my best friend. But she was a wonderful person, always supportive of me. She
How often would you see her?
during the week, 2 or 3 times a week, you know, I mean, I'd visit the house, I'd sleep over, or I even went on vacations with the family, so we saw each other on a fairly regular basis. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about you as an 18-year-old. What was your relationship with her then?
It was the same. I mean, we saw each other.
She was married.
Yes,
She
sir.
had children.
Yes, sir.
So you were married.
Yes, sir.
So was your relationship? Well, she was a childhood friend of mine that I'd speak with from time to time. Is that basically it?
Well, we'd go there and sit.
Who is
and-
we?
Mostly I visited with her brother, Troy. He was my best friend, so it was usually when I went and we were together, or we went fishing, or we went water skiing. And when we visited home,
So tell me about what
it was
happened
usually to smoke.
night
Smoke
that you were. So tell me how that occurred. Tell me what was going on with you and how that happened.
I had went out that night, and kind of like most weekends, we go ride around, we'd get high.
Who is
And
we?
I was out with my wife that night, and
Okay.
we were riding around, and we stopped to get something to eat. And a girl came to the car to give us our order. And my wife got a little jealous. Because I knew this girl, we both knew this girl, and
Now, this
No.
girl is not Roxana Barrett. This
no,
is some
no,
of-
sir. This is somebody we.
I was angry of something that, why was she upset? What were you doing with this other girl?
Nothing. We were just getting an order and she kind of thought, maybe I knew her and I wasn't flirtatious or anything, but she was a little upset. Maybe she thought, that we had some kind of relationship, but we didn't. We were
Why
just,
would she think that?
I don't know. She didn't have a particular reason because we didn't really say anything. She was just giving our order at the Sonic restaurant that night.
What happened next?
Oh, well, we got in a disagreement about that because I was trying to say that, there's nothing between us. I don't talk to her or anything. But she was a little upset. So I brought my wife home. And in order not to get into an argument or anything, I went out again.
Where'd you go?
Ride around and I was getting hot, smoking, smoking
Getting
and
high
drinking.
on,
I was by myself this time.
getting high on,
Marijuana and alcohol and amphetamines.
all three that night. Okay, go ahead. What else happened?
Somehow I got the idea that Troy was going to Roxanne's that night, so I was going to go there and meet him and
Roy is her brother, right?
her brother.
Okay. How did you get the idea that he would be at her house? She was married, had a husband. Why would her brother be there?
Well, I met him earlier that night and got a marijuana joint from him and two of my other friends. And I thought he had mentioned that he was going maybe to stay at Roxanne's.
Then what happened? What happened? How did you get to her house?
I drove around and then just pulled in and stopped and went and knocked on the door.
Why did you go to her house?
Just, I thought I was going to visit with, Troy and maybe Tim and Roxanne. And I
Okay.
mean, I didn't know it was just Roxanne home. I didn't go there just
So tell me what happened, when you got there.
when I got there, I don't know that we talked a lot, didn't have a relationship with her, but for some reason, we used to play these childhood games where the girls in the neighborhood and the guys in the neighborhood, and we would try to
You're
undress.
18 years old, you're married, and she's married.
Yes, sir.
You're fighting with your wife. You're high and you go to her house. Tell me
Yes, sir.
why you go to her house again, to see her brother?
Just to visit with her and her brother and maybe Tim and whoever else might have been there.
What happens when you get there?
Basically, I made a pass at her and tried to play a childhood game with her that,
I read about this childhood game. What do you mean a childhood game? You're 18 years old, this woman is married, you end up murdering her, her pants are down. What kind of childhood game were you playing? I read that 4 or 5 times. And I have seen all of the tremendous things you've accomplished while you've been in prison. But I am still stuck on the fact that you don't acknowledge what you did. So tell me why you went there and what you did, and don't tell me it was some childhood game you were going to play.
Well, I wasn't thinking, that's the problem. I didn't intend to go there and harm my friend. But I ended up there and I pushed myself on my friend and assaulted her and became aggressive. Just impulsively, I acted on feelings. I didn't stop to think what I was doing.
This is a woman that you've known all your life.
Yes, sir.
Go over there, she rejects you and you murder her.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You didn't go over there with the intention of having sexual relationships with her?
No, sir. Even in our younger years, I know it was a destructive game, but that was never the intention. I didn't show up there to have any kind of sexual relations with her. I just got lost in a drug haze and lost in my feelings.
Why did you stab her so many times? Why did you do what you did to her?
My last hearing, somebody asked me how many times I stabbed her, and I actually couldn't have answered that. Now I've read my appellate record and realized I just lost control of myself. I have no excuse for that, sir.
You angry?
I must have been still angry.
What were you angry?
Just at my life, I imagine at the time I was not very responsible. I was living off my parents. I couldn't support my wife on my own. I didn't have a job. Just a very immature person.
You've been in prison now for 44 years.
Yes, sir.
You have obviously given thought to what you did and why you did it. Explain to me why you did what you did. Based upon all of the programs that you've taken, all of the things you've accomplished while you've been in prison, tell me why you did what you did. What conclusion you have come to as to why you did what you did.
Because we never taught when we were doing this stuff as kids. After we play these destructive games, we never actually talked to the girls and asked them, how does this feel to you? Or even amongst the boys, we never talked about it. But I look back and I realize we never asked for consent. We never asked them after, how is this affecting you? We'd leave from these things and go skiing and ride motorcycles together. Everybody that was involved in it. Over the years, I've realized we put ourselves in a bad situation, risky situations that older people that found out about the stuff we were doing said, nothing good's gonna come from this behavior y'all doing. But I learned that I never asked consent. And I did the same thing that night. I didn't ask Roxanne. I didn't have accountability for my actions then. And I didn't have, that night, I should have stopped. Should have never started. But at some point I should have stopped and realized what I was doing.
Mr. Mr. Liner, I've looked at your history. I mean, you've been a good prisoner. You've taken a lot of programs. You were at the Louisiana State Police Barracks from 1987 to 2015. What did you do while you were there?
The first job I had was in maintenance. And I tried to advance myself as much as possible. I'd learned different trades. I went from maintenance to a hazmat training facility for first responders. That was on during the summer months was a underprivileged kids camp. I was trying to become a better person. And I thought that the structure, the responsibilities that state police was providing me would give me the confidence to grow up. And then eventually I left the boys camp and went to the governor's mansion, and I spent the last 10 years of the time I had at the state police as a butler. Well, I started as a dry cleaner and worked my way up to be the butler over the governor's mansion.
And during all of this time with the structure that you've had in the prison system, you've performed very well. You had trusted positions, et cetera. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you've been before a board similar to this. This is your 5th time, I think.
Well, I think I've had 6 applications, 3 were denied right off, and this will be my 3rd hearing. My first hearing, I didn't attend in person. The first person hearing I had was in 2015 in person, and this will be my 3rd.
And in 2015, one of the concerns was that you didn't have enough programs behind you because you'd been working. And it was a strong suggestion about the sex crime, at which time you denied sex was not an issue at that hearing. Is that correct? You know, listen to the transcript. I've listened to that hearing. You remember that? You remember
Yes, sir.
what was
Yes, sir.
asked to you that you do more programs?
Yes, sir. I remember it distinctly, and since I've been back, that was the first thing I started on, working on programming.
Went back to Angola in 2015, and you did
Yes, sir.
anger management, thinking for a change, victim awareness, 100 hours of pre-release.
Yes,
Right.
sir. And
And when did you start sex offender treatment? I understand you're currently in sex offender treatment. When did you start that? And how did that come about that you got into that program?
it takes a while to get into it if you're not actually charged with the sex offense.
How
but
long have you been trying to get into that program? Because it's my understanding you weren't even taking the program until it was suggested you needed to take it.
Yes, sir.
When did you decide
I
to
haven't-
take
I
the
haven't
sex
been in-
offender?
I haven't been in it that long. I've only completed the first phase.
When did you decide to take the sex offender treatment program?
I want to say it was at least 2 months ago, I think it started.
Why did it take you that long to decide sex offender treatment was something that you probably needed?
Well, I hadn't had any accountability for what we did as children that contributed to the crime I committed against Roxanne as an adult.
I agree with that. Why did it take you 2 months ago to realize that?
I kind of been always told that I couldn't get in it, but I just since I've been back 2015, I did,
Your 2015 hearing was centered around rape, even though you weren't charged with that. Do you remember that?
yes, sir.
And you didn't decide to get into sex offender treatment program for 8 years later?
Uh, Honestly, yes, sir. I didn't think about it until I started reading my appellate court records.
You have nothing you can do about this, but you've got a lot of opposition to your release. And a lot of support too. I mean, you've done a lot of good things while you've been in prison. And that's certainly something very, very favorable to you. Warden Ambo, what can you tell us about Mr. Liner?
So, Judge Maribel, I'm gonna go back to the sex offender treatment, program. We have something called a Tiger now, but it used to be the Lorna. Every time he took the Lorna and he took the Prior, the social workers was not recognizing his offense as a sex offense. So when he tried to get in sex offender class, they were telling him he wasn't deemed to be a sex offender, to be in sex offender treatment, I'm sorry. Until about a couple of months ago, when I looked in his record and I seen the rap sheet when it said in the omission of committing aggravated rape, I went to the social worker and let him know that, yes, he is. So he was being truthful in his statement when he was telling you that it was hard to get into class because the social workers wasn't recognizing it. And they had no, I guess they didn't look in the chart to see what it was. So I'm just gonna clarify that part for you. But to speak on David Liner, he has been an exceptional inmate here at LSP. He has completed a lot of classes. He has very good work ethic. He's a team player. Anything that anyone asks David to do, he does, and very, very, very mannerable. He has manners. He has not had a disciplinary report since 1986, which was a gambling, Schedule B that he had in 1986. If David was given a chance to return to society, I think that David would be a better citizen than he was before. I think that he has learned and he has taken accountability for a lot of things that he did in his past. So with that being said, that's all I have to say about David. He has been truthful in everything he said, and I really do believe he's a rehabilitated offender.
Thank you very much, Warden. Mr. Liner, what would be your sobriety plan? What would be your plan to stay sober if you were released?
I would love to get an AA program, or I'm not sure exactly the programming that's offered by the Parole Project, but I would.
How familiar are you with the 12-step program?
Spent 10 years doing it, and at the barracks, it was sponsored by the maintenance supervisor, Mr. Johnny Ragusa. I think the Serenity Prayer is probably my go-to prayer. Anytime things are going wrong, that I bring up the Serenity Prayer. But I would definitely want to take advantage of all the programs that the Parole Project has and take any suggestions that they had on any program that I needed to take.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I don't see any other questions. Mr. Freeman, any questions?
Matt, this is my first time having a hearing with you. What is this game y'all keep talking about?
When we were younger, I don't know how it ever got started, but a lot of the kids around the neighborhood, I can't remember all of the kids. The only people I remember is myself.
Game was about.
It was to undress girls, pull their tops up and pull their bottoms down, and then we'd all take off and just go about our days. We wouldn't talk about it.
All right, that's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'd like to hear from the support now. So, there with you, could we hear from Mr. Rand?
I can't see.
Can't see your face.
Yeah. You can just speak loudly, we'll be able to see you.
I am Paul Dwayne Rand. I am 29 years retired state trooper. I have a wife and 5 total children. I've been knowing David since 1997. I met him at Holden at the boys camp where he was part of staff. I would work details there. I worked as a counselor for the underprivileged children, where we'd have the children come out and we would counsel them and get them to do activities to help them team build and become closer with each other. David, I didn't even know David was an inmate. He was staff to me. He worked around the kids with me and with the other troopers who would be out there counseling. My children, on the weekends, when I would work on the weekends, would come out, and David treated them like his own kids. Like I said before, David helped counsel with the underprivileged kids, the inner city kids that would come out during the youth camp weekend. And later in my career, I ran back in across David's path while he was a butler at the governor's mansion. He came to the mansion, I think, to be the butler, or when I was there, he was the butler in the Governor General's administration. And he basically took care of the little kids the whole time like he was the parent. And I would tell David on occasion that he's a better man than me because I raised my own kids. And he had a not just full-time job, a 24-hour job. He was a great parent to the governor's and first lady's children. There's nothing David didn't do. And David always went over and above in his work. He even went as far as he actually had to be a bartender at many late night functions. He's actually served me an alcoholic beverage for like Christmas parties and different things. But for him as a character and who he is now, I would never have dreamed of that being his past. Never. I can't even imagine that. Sitting here listening to what y'all are talking about now is not the David Liner I've been knowing since 1997. He is, I'm going to tell you now, I consider him a very good friend, and he could live at my house today. He could, my kids, I would feel comfortable with my kids, my grandkids with him. I would be honored for him to know my grandkids like he did the general kids. He would have knowledge that he could give to them that even I can't share. I just hope and pray that he's blessed today. I feel for the victim's family. I can't even imagine what they're going through or what they lived through. But I hope that they can find forgiveness in their heart. It's, I know it's hard, but forgiveness helps us all grow and move forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your is William Liner? Did you want to speak? Yeah, I didn't
Miss Irene
recognize
Shepherd.
her. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Miss Irene Shepherd was going to make a couple of comments. Miss Irene,
Oh.
is that still okay?
Ms. Irene, would you like to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, I'm Irene Shepherd. I used to work at the governor's mansion for 18 years. 14 of those years, I was the mansion coordinator. I met David during the Blanco administration. That's when he got there. He started off in the laundry. He moved up to the head butler. And I was just thinking this morning how I could cut this short. I think I'm just going to talk about trust. All the people that took a chance on David and how much they trusted him, and they were never disappointed. Number one, the man that whoever recommended him to come to the mansion, he stuck his neck out to the barracks to send him over to the governor's mansion. We don't just let anybody come to the governor's mansion. They go through an evaluation. They go through all kind of testing. Because they're going to be right there with with the governor and the first family and a lot of dignitaries. So that's really important. So that person stuck his neck out. So then he came to the governor's mansion. The state police, I think it was the captain that took a chance on him and made him head butler. Did he disappoint? Never, never, never. He worked for me. I never had to worry about one thing. David just got it done. Sometimes we had a little disagreement, but you know what? We were friends and we worked it out, and he just went on his way. He just bounced back, and he was a real trooper. Now, then he was taken, like ran, and the warden said it better than I can say. All of that I agree with 100%. He took care of those children. He was their father, their friend. They'd come in after school and they'd come in there and go, "Where's Mr. David? I want to go ride my bike." Well, Mr. David was helping them with the bikes, with the basketball. He had a 24-hour job. It wasn't only taking care of the children, assisting the governor, the first lady. He worked on all my events. He was a bartender. He served drinks. I never had to worry about David. So I'm just thinking about all the people that put their trust in David and how he never disappointed them. And I'm going to stick my neck out one more time. And I have asked my son, which I've only done twice before, to hire him at Epic Piping, and he has agreed to do that. And David will have a job there. And I just don't do that for anybody because I don't want to embarrass my son. My son is the president of that company. So, but anyway, and I have kept up with David. I've gone up to Angola to see him. I'm a little nervous. I was going to be there, but I have COVID, so that's why I'm here. But anyway, I would go up and check on him, and he had a little, he was a little disappointed at times, but he bounced back. I got wonderful letters from him. There's been such a change in David from the time I met him till today. And I agree with Rand. That is not what happened all those years ago. That's not the David that I know, my friend David. And that's all I have to say. And thank you for your time. And sorry, I'm rattling on, but anyway, I could just go on. But and again, I feel for the victims. I never forget them. It's not, I'm not one of those that forget that there's something that happened and it's a horrible thing. But David is my friend, and thank you very much for letting me speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your participation this morning. Can we hear from the Parole Project?
Yes, good morning. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. We are here to support David in his transition. We will provide David with assessments, with substance abuse assessment through our social work program. And we have no doubt that David will follow any recommendations made by that. We'll also provide David. 44 years is a very long time. While David has functioned at a very high level in the jobs that he had, the transition is still different. And so we are prepared through our peer mentoring to assist David with the transition. That includes social norms, financial, consumer skills, technology, the things that David's going to need. We know he has employment waiting for him. We're going to ensure that he's connected to all the services that he has. David's record has been exemplary, 8 disciplinary write-ups in 44 years. His level of trust is unprecedented, and we would just ask this board to consider this, that he is not an 18-year-old drug-addicted youth anymore. He is a mature man, and to grant David his recommendation today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, opposition now. First, we'd like to hear from Mr. Jeremy Barrow. Go ahead, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah,
You'll go first,
thank you.
yes. Mr. White.
Yes. Everyone. Good morning. My name is Marty White. I'm the Assistant Attorney General with the state of Louisiana. Had the pleasure of serving as a prosecutor for 24 years with that agency. It is. I'm here today, ladies and gentlemen, to speak in opposition to Mr. Liner's application for police. I heard the last speaker talk about trust, and without going into too many details of the facts of the case, which I'm sure you all are greatly aware. The gentleman, Mr. Liner, violated the utmost trust of anyone could ever against exhibit. He not only violated the trust of his wife, who was pregnant with their child, he violated the trust of one of his best friends working offshore. And Mr. Liner eased himself into that man's house and came onto his wife in such a disgusting way. This young lady was a 20-year-old, newly married, young mother, a secretary at the DA's office in St. Mary Parish. She deserved to have a young, beautiful, productive life with her family. But a person who was so-called a friend, who her husband trusted, who her brother trusted, she was one of the best friends of the brother who is sitting here today. Mr. Liner went into that man's house, accosted his wife, in fact, tried to rape her. She fought him off in a brutal fashion. That was evidenced by the autopsy report and photos. This one then took a knife, several knives, and commenced to stab this woman, probably in excess of 50 times. The extent that he broke one of the knives off into the sleeve. But he didn't stop there. He continued and continued and continued until after she was, I guess, so dead he admitted in the trial transcript that he pulled her underwear down and vaginally penetrated her. Now, Judge Marabella asked some very crucial and I thought very important question. In all of Mr. Liner's efforts of quote unquote rehabilitation, taking classes, getting whatever certifications, it is very lacking in sexual assault, impulse control, any type of in-depth psychiatric treatment, counseling that would even help him understand why he did what he did, because it appears that based on his own statements and comments today, that he had not come to terms with the sexual deviant aspect of his behavior in all these years until after the 2015 hearing, where it was suggested to him that he get treatment, counseling, or something. He indicated that, well, he tried, he couldn't. The warden testified, well, he was probably eligible for it, but the social worker would not allow him in a program because there was no indication that he was a sexual offender. And so my question is, from 2015 to 2 months ago, if the warden knew him that well and was so comfortable with him, why couldn't he have come to her before then and get a clarification that he did in fact qualify for some type of sexual counseling, deviancy, or whatever before 2 months ago? That tells me he is either has not accepted his actual thought processes which led to this murder, or he is just playing games to try to jump through some hoops to get out. So, ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely urge you to deny Mr. Lerner's application. This, and I know Mr. Wall said this when he was here 6 years ago. This was a very brutal crime. Very brutal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Right, this is Mr. Jeremy.
Yes.
Miller.
My name is Jeremy Perry, and I'm here begging, pleading with you guys, please do not let David out. I was 18 months old when David Lerner came into our home and brutally murdered my mother. As an 18-month-old, after this, I was also left unattended till the next day when they found us. With my mom's bloody body on the floor. That's where they found me, I was told, laying next to her. This incident has left lifelong consequences for my family, for myself, and it seems that I don't want to pin anything with. I don't want to say anything that's not true, but it just seems like the innocent or the victims that have a lot less than what the criminal does these days, and It's hurtful, very, very, very hurtful. Since 1978, 79, when this all happened, you know, we was told that he really never served hard time for his crime. You know, being a butler for a crime that was so bad. It's not too much of a punishment for murder. His sentence was life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. And I'm still begging and pleading, will you please honor this sentence and deny the request for parole? Most people have countless amounts of photos of their parents, their holidays with them. This is all I've got. Something almost to the point where we just amount in black and white, that's all I'm gonna do. And that's the only thing I've got of it. And I wish, I don't know if y'all have them or not, but photos of what actually happened would have painted the perfect picture of the pain that we experience daily, having to go through this. Most people get to put all of this behind them as time will heal a broken heart, but every 5, 6 years, we got to come to you and try to keep him in there for a crime that he had no possibility of parole. And what I'm fixing to ask you guys, that is very respectful, it's from the heart, but I don't mean anything bad about it, but my whole perspective is if this was one of your family members, would we be here right now? And I mean that respectfully, I don't mean that with any disrespect. I just wish David could understand the pain that he's put us through. He's took the most precious thing that any child would ever have in their life and just tossed it out the way. I'll never be able to have any of that. I won't have my kids are about to graduate high school, one of them this year. You can't do, she won't see none of that. Grandkids, if I'm blessed to have that, never be able to see any of that. I'll never have it. When a person commits a crime like that, it's one thing, but to continue on and going on with the process like he did, it just paints a picture in my mind of, I don't know, I can call it a sickness. Because I mean, he could have stopped like he said. Once again, I just ask for you, in honor of my mother, please honor the sentence that he was given with no possibility of parole, please. From my heart, I ask you that. I look each one of y'all in the eye for that. We never have closure. I'm just asking for some today again. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Latil?
Most of us died in solitude that night and have never been able to live our lives in a normal fashion. And I'm one of the girls that was the victim of this game that he wants to talk about. He knows it wasn't a game. It never was a game. We never laughed. We fought and we fought, and we couldn't fight them off. And with David, always the underlying instigator for it.
his cronies that he got to help him grab a girl and do these things to were always different. But David was always the one doing it and always the one pushing it. And the last time I let it happen to me, he took on a whole different look in his face. And it really scared me. And that's when I told Roxanna then, we have to tell. We can't keep this quiet anymore. We have to tell because something bad is gonna happen. I saw it in his eyes this time. Something bad is gonna happen if we don't tell. And they cornered her one more time, and I went and got a neighbor. Well, he ran and let all the other little boys get in trouble with the neighbor while he ran down the Capefield Road and ran home. So nobody ever even talked to him. It never happened to Roxana and I again until the night she died. But it didn't stop him because there were several occasions that I caught him trying to do it to another girl where I intervened and I stopped it. He's sitting there, he's making excuses, he's pretending it's a game, he's pretending he doesn't understand how it affected us, and he's lying to every one of you. Trust. We grew up together. We were all friends. We were together every day growing up. We trusted him until that started. When that started, we didn't trust him anymore. We were a small town, a large group of kids. Yes, we still were in certain instances around him, but it wasn't everything as usual. We kept our distance from him, knowing that something was not right with him in the head. He was a sexual deviant and it was obvious. And the only time I realized he wasn't still up to no good was when he started dating Jill. And that's his wife who he ended up marrying. But when he started dating Jill, I never saw anything else happen again. And I never heard anything else happen again. And in my teenage mind thought, well, I guess she's satisfying his perverted needs. And so he's not out there hurting anybody anymore. But I was very wrong because now we're here. My best friend is dead. I've lived my whole life never having a friend like that again. All of my milestones, this baby, knowing that he was laying on her dead, bloody body all night, live with that every single day. Because when her was all short, guess what? Roy was there, was there.
Miss Litton.
That's how he knew, because he knew our routine, because it was the same routine. She never stayed by herself. He didn't go over there looking for Troy. He had seen Troy. He knew Troy wasn't there.
Miss
He
Litton.
had seen me when he was fighting with his wife and bringing his wife home. We passed on the street. He saw me. He saw I wasn't there.
Miss
He's
Litton.
still sitting here lying to people.
Yeah, we do have your letter. We have all the details that you wrote to us in your letter. And I'm sorry, we have a 3-minute rule and we're already at 5 minutes. We appreciate your testimony. All right. So that's all the speakers we have today. We would like to ask Mr. Liner, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board and address your remarks to the board?
Yes, ma'am. I want to thank the honorable board for even granting me this hearing this time. I want to say that the regret for my crime was so intense that it caused me to change my life. I didn't want to be the person that did that. I understand I'm asking for a second chance when I didn't give a second chance. It fills me with guilt to be asking. My victims will never heal. Roxanne, Jeremy, Tim, Troy, Kim, Cindy. I failed my friend. Roxanne a tragic night. And I've changed their lives forever. But I will never harm anyone again. Thank you.
Ms. Myers?
Thank you, ma'am. I join David in expressing my sincere sadness for the victims and the intense grief that they're clearly still feeling. David will live with the terrible pain of knowing that he caused all of this suffering for the rest of his life. David's workload at the mansion was grueling. The perception that he had a cushy job there is inaccurate. He worked 80 hours a week, 7 days a week, year after year, and he proved himself over and over again, excelling in that demanding role over a decade. The Chief of Staff to the Governor, Mark Cooper, wrote in his letter of support for David that during his time working with David under the Jindal administration, that David demonstrated an exceptional work ethic and a profound loyalty to the First Family and a genuine kindness to those he came in contact with. David was moved back to LSP in 2015, and he has faithfully followed the board's recommendation to pursue more programming. And he will continue his risk management program, which he will be finished within 2 months. And he's benefiting greatly from what he is learning about the mistakes that he made in his youth and the terrible night that he killed Roxanne Barrio. David's rehabilitation has been evident to numerous veteran state officials, including State Police Captain Clay Chutes, who wrote that David did a very good job, followed instructions well, and was a model inmate. Assistant Mansion Coordinator Bobby Johnson said there was never, and I do mean never, a task needed or asked of David that he did not excel at on every level. If David is granted a commutation today, he will come to the parole project and he will have our full support. He will work as a pipe fabricator, and he will use a car from his friend, Corliss Larks, a retired State Police criminal records custodian, and she would like to lend him her car. David has a viable and realistic reentry plan that will help ensure he is successful. And he will also attend AA meetings if he's granted release. On behalf of all of David's supporters, including his son, Jason Liner, who's here today, his daughter-in-law, Sarah, 3 beloved grandchildren, his cousins, nephews, and esteemed former colleagues at the Governor's Mansion, we pray this honorable board sees a transformation in David and recommends him for a commutation of sentence to 90 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board prepared to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Marabella?
First off, I'd like to say to everybody who has participated in this hearing today, thank you for being here. I have heard the pain that this crime has caused the victims and family of the victim case. I have listened intently to all of the persons that have testified here today, and I will say, I know many of the people who have written in letters of support. I have nothing but the utmost of respect for those persons. I've read every one of the letters in opposition. Facts of this case are horrible. All facts generally that come before us are horrible. And that is one factor that we take into account. It's a factor that sometimes we give more deference to than others, but that's one factor. Our job as a parole board is to determine who and what Mr. Liner may be today, not so much what he was back then. That's our role. Everybody has various roles and different roles. Mr. Liner has performed admirably while he's been in prison. He's got letters of support, all of the things that he's done while he's been there under a very structured environment. As I look on the facts of this case, having listened to the last hearing and having read all of the information here, it is clear to me that this was a sex offense case. This was a rape that ultimately ended in a murder. And for Mr. Liner to say today, and I'm glad he said today, that a couple of months ago, he decided, well, maybe this is a sex offense and maybe I need some treatment. I'm glad he is getting that treatment. I think it's critical. My opinion is based, even in spite of all of the things that he's accomplished while he's been in prison, public safety is a primary interest to me. And one of the things that I have to be sure of is that this man has all of the tools necessary to make sure this crime won't be committed again. Until and unless he completes that sex offense treatment program, and I am convinced, if I'm back on this board at some point, that he understands all of those things. I don't think he's really come to grips with what he did and why he did it. My vote today is to deny.
Mr. Freeman?
Very, very trying and tough case. Not to make light of the murder, because the murder was very gruesome and you know, was terrible thing. But I, like Mr. Barabella, am more concerned about the sex offender stuff. Because we all know sex offenders, you know, they reoffend quite often, and it's a sickness. And I think he needs to finish that sex offender treatment, so my vote is to deny also.
Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Liner, I've listened very closely. You have accomplished a lot. And, yeah, I like to think that who we are at 18 and 20 then define the whole scope of our life. People do have the capacity to grow and to mature and to change. But like my colleagues, I am concerned about the underlying sexual aspect of the case and the fact that you've not really dealt with that issue through programming. And so my vote today is not yet. Not yet. I think you certainly need to complete sex offender treatment. And I think you need to do a lot of self-reflection about this whole pattern of conduct that existed up until the point that you committed this offense. So my vote today is to deny because I believe you do need some more work. But good luck to you.
Mr. Rushing?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the participants. And I know many of them, and especially the victim's family. This is difficult. This is very difficult on you. Mr. Lyon, I will be very frank with you. And listen to me good. I listened intently to Mr. Marabella's interview. You were less than truthful. You didn't take full responsibility for your action 44 years later. You hemmed and hawed and you got the issue. And you didn't go to that trailer to see Troy. You had just left Troy. I read the report. You had an argument with your wife and you want to be consoled. You knew your best friend was offshore and you went there for one thing and one thing only. You need to come to a realization that you have to accept what you did. And you didn't do that today. Based on a lack of responsibility for your actions, overwhelming express opposition from the entire legal community, the Attorney General's office, the judge, the DA's office, law enforcement involvement, opposition, adamant opposition from the victim's family. A young man stood before the podium today, was 18 months old when he witnessed the murder of his mother. and you need to finish the sex offender treatment. As I see it now, you are a danger to the society and public safety. And until I feel that you're not, my vote is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Roseman. All right, Mr. Lyon, you've received 4 votes to deny your application for clemency, so you know that is the outcome of today's proceeding.
Yes,
You'd
ma'am.
like to.
Thank you.